Childhood trauma is the hidden conductor of your adult decisions. Bessel van der Kolk. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. You're not angry because of today's problems. You're not anxious because of this morning's news. You're not empty because of your job, your partner, or your bank account. You are living a life that was shaped by wounds you didn't choose. Most of them from a time you don't even remember. Childhood didn't end. It became the blueprint. And if no one ever told you this, that's why everything feels wrong. Every day, you're trying to fix the surface, while the roots stay untouched. You work harder. You go to therapy. You read the books. You repeat the mantras. But the truth, nothing changes, because something deeper is running the show. You think you're in control, but really, it's the hurt 5-year-old inside you who decides how you love, how you react, how you trust, how you live. That's why you keep choosing people who make you feel not enough. That's why you sabotage your own success the moment it gets close. That's why you feel guilty for resting, for wanting more, for saying no. These are not flaws. These are traces of wounds that were never healed. The child in you didn't just grow up. It got buried under roles, masks, and survival patterns. But it's still there, and it's still in charge. If you're always overthinking, maybe it's because you had to predict the mood of a parent just to feel safe. If you can't trust anyone, maybe it's because the first people who were supposed to protect you didn't. If you're addicted to being perfect, maybe it's because love once came with conditions. You were shaped by a world where being fully yourself wasn't safe. And now, even in peace, your body expects danger. We don't just have childhood trauma, we live it over and over, not in memories, but in reactions, choices, and silent beliefs. You don't scream, "I'm hurt." You just work too much, you care too little, or you please too often. Trauma is not what happened. It's what still lives in you, unanswered. And until it's seen, it writes your story for you. And here's the part no one likes to hear. You can't outthink it. You can't fix it with willpower. Because trauma isn't logical. It's emotional, somatic, rooted in a body that learned the world isn't safe. That's why you freeze in conflict. That's why you chase people who run. That's why silence feels like abandonment, and love feels like danger. The truth is brutal, but clear. Your life today is a reflection of the pain you couldn't process yesterday. Your relationships, your income, your health, your sense of self. All of it, filtered through a wounded lens. This isn't a character flaw. It's a survival map your nervous system drew before you had a choice. And unless you look at it, it keeps guiding your every step. So if you've ever felt like you're not the one living your life, if you've ever watched yourself repeat the same cycles, knowing better but doing the same, you're not broken. You're just running on old programming. And it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Because the truth is this: unhealed childhood wounds don't stay in childhood. They grow with us. They become our voice, our mirror, our cage. And the only way out is in. By the end of this video, you'll understand how your childhood still lives in you and why your pain might be the key to your power. Underneath every adult who feels stuck, lost, or numb, there's a child who never felt safe. That's not poetry, that's biology. When you were young, your brain wasn't building opinions, it was wiring survival. You didn't understand shame, but you felt it. You didn't know what neglect was, but your body learned to disappear. You didn't process betrayal, but you stopped trusting. And those moments, They became programs. Programs that still run your life today. Let's be clear. Childhood trauma isn't always violence or abuse. Sometimes it's what didn't happen. The hug you never got. The words you never heard. The safety you never felt. It's being seen only when you succeed. It's being punished for crying. It's hearing you're too sensitive until you believe silence is strength. These are the invisible wounds, and they're often the most dangerous because you grow up not knowing anything was ever wrong. You just think, this is who you are, but it's not. You were shaped, conditioned, programmed, and the patterns don't break just because you grow older. They become your identity, the people you date, the jobs you choose, the way you speak to yourself at 2 a.m. That's not random. That's childhood, echoing in your nervous system. Let's name them, because silence protects the trauma. These are the core wounds that run our adult lives. The abandonment wound, where love equals fear of loss. The rejection wound, where you avoid being seen because you expect to be disliked. The humiliation wound, where you shrink yourself to avoid shame. The betrayal wound, where trust feels impossible. The injustice wound, where perfectionism becomes your prison. Add to this financial trauma, being raised in scarcity, in stress, in silence around money. And you get a nervous system that flinches every time life offers abundance. And the real trap, these wounds don't just hurt, they recreate themselves. You chase emotionally unavailable partners, not because you want pain, but because your body calls it home. You avoid success, not because you're lazy, but because success feels unsafe to someone who was punished for shining. You numb your needs, not because you're cold, but because no one ever responded when you had them. So, what do? First, we stop pretending this is just a mindset issue. Trauma isn't in your thoughts, it's in your reactions, in your breath, in your body. And healing starts when you stop calling these patterns normal. It starts when you say, this anxiety isn't me, this fear isn't truth, this shutdown isn't my identity, it's survival, old survival. And if any part of this feels real, if something inside you is nodding right now, then you're not alone. You're part of something bigger. And if you're still here, if you're still listening, you've already taken the hardest step, facing what others run from. If that's you, subscribe to this channel. Algorithms will make sure more people hear what was never said to them. Join the Telegram too. That's where we go deeper, without filters. And if you recognize yourself in these words, write in the comments, I no longer run from pain. Let's see how many of us are ready for the truth. Most people spend their lives trying to fix the wrong problem. They chase motivation, confidence, productivity, without realizing they're standing on a foundation that's cracked. And no matter how many self-help books you read, how many coaches you hire, how many habits you build, if that foundation is built on childhood pain, everything will collapse. You can't create a fulfilling life on top of a nervous system that's still fighting ghosts from the past. And yet, that's what we've all been taught to do. Let's be brutally honest. Most personal growth advice is a distraction. It keeps you chasing the surface while the real damage remains untouched. They tell you to think positive, but your body still flinches every time someone raises their voice. They say, just set boundaries, but your nervous system panics when you try to say no. They promise abundance, but deep inside, you still feel unworthy of having more. The system doesn't heal you. It manages you. It teaches you how to survive prettier. But survival is not the same as freedom. This is the part most therapists don't talk about. Not because they're bad, but because they work inside a framework that avoids the deepest pain. Real trauma healing isn't comfortable. It's messy, slow, and often terrifying. It's not about fixing you. It's about grieving what you never had. The love that wasn't safe, the presence that was missing, the protection you should have received but didn't. That grief, that's the gateway, and unless you feel it, you'll keep reliving it. You may have gone to therapy for years and still feel stuck. That doesn't mean you failed. It means no one taught you how to feel what you had to numb to survive. Because healing isn't cognitive. You don't talk your way out of trauma. You feel your way through it. That means sitting with the shaking, breathing into the rage, not fixing the sadness, but finally letting it exist. The goal isn't to be happy. The goal is to be whole, and that includes the parts of you you've been told to hide. Here's the dangerous illusion: that you're the problem, that you're just not trying hard enough, that you need to change your mindset. But the truth is, you did everything right, and it still didn't work. Not because of you, but because you were trying to heal wounds that were never yours to carry in the first place. Your trauma is not your fault, but your healing, that's your choice. And this is where things shift. Because once you stop blaming yourself, you can finally look at what's really running your life. That fear of abandonment? That's not about your partner. That's about the day your parent walked out, emotionally or physically. That's self-doubt. That's not about your job. That's about the years you were never validated. That hunger for approval. That's not about achievement. That's about the child who was only loved when they performed. So stop asking what's wrong with you. Start asking what happened to you. That shift changes everything. Because now, instead of fixing yourself, you begin to understand yourself. And that understanding, that's where real transformation begins. Not by force, but by truth. And truth is the only thing that ever sets us free. You don't repeat the past because you want to. You repeat it because it's familiar. The mind calls it logic. The body calls it safety. That's why people keep choosing the same partners, the same patterns, the same pain, even when they know better. Because pain isn't random. It's remembered. And until it's healed, it keeps you stuck in a loop where suffering feels like home. Not because you enjoy it, but because it's what your nervous system expects. Someone who grew up with emotional absence will often chase intensity, mistaking chaos for connection. Someone who was constantly criticized will either become a perfectionist or stop trying completely. Someone who lived around volatility will learn to scan every room, every face, every moment, hypervigilant, exhausted, but convinced this is normal. And this is where it gets dangerous, because the longer you live in trauma, the more it hides. It becomes personality. You say, "I'm just like this." Number, you're not. You were trained to be. And here's the paradox. The wound will always try to recreate itself, just to resolve itself. That's why people hurt you the same way your parents did. That's why you self-sabotage the moment you feel safe. The body wants closure, and it will repeat the pain until it gets it. But real closure doesn't come from repeating patterns. It comes from breaking them. Not by force, but by awareness. The moment you recognize the cycle, you are no longer inside it blindly. That's where change begins. You can't heal what you keep calling normal. You can't change what you keep blaming on others. And you can't find peace by avoiding the war inside you. The truth hurts, but denial kills. And every time you avoid looking inward, the cost is your own life, the one you could have lived if you had chosen to face what hurt the most. Healing begins not when you escape your past, but when you finally see it clearly and choose something else. Oprah Winfrey was born into poverty, raised by a teenage mother, and sexually abused before she turned 14. She ran away from home, lost trust in people, and spent years carrying shame that wasn't hers. But she didn't let that pain define her. She faced it, talked about it, and built a life rooted not in the wound, but in the wisdom it gave her. Her voice, her presence, her power. They were all born from the same place as her deepest pain. She didn't escape trauma. She turned toward it and used it. Howard Schultz, the man behind Starbucks, grew up in a housing project. His father worked dead-end jobs and never had health care or protection. Howard watched the system fail his family. He felt the insecurity, the helplessness, but instead of running from it, he made it his reason. His mission became personal: to build a company where people were treated with dignity. The man who once saw his father broken on a couch built a culture of care for thousands. That's not luck, that's transformation. Tara Westover was raised in a survivalist family that rejected education, medicine, and the outside world. She didn't enter a classroom until she was 17. Her childhood was filled with fear, control, and silence. But she didn't let that script decide her future. She taught herself, fought for knowledge, and earned a PhD from Cambridge. Her memoir, Educated, is not just a story of escape. It's a testimony of what happens when you dare to rewrite the story trauma wrote for you. These stories aren't here to inspire you. They're here to remind you your trauma is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your truth. Every person who ever broke through didn't do it because they had no pain. They did it because they finally stopped pretending it wasn't there. They turned inward, faced the fire, and came back with clarity. That path is open to you too, but only if you're willing to walk it without illusions. You don't heal by accident. You heal by decision, and not just once. Every day, in small, invisible choices. Healing from childhood trauma doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means facing it, feeling it, and refusing to let it control your future. The first step is awareness, noticing when the old patterns show up. That tightness in your chest when someone ignores you. That need to please when you're afraid of rejection. That voice in your head saying, "You're not enough." These are not personality traits. They are echoes, traces of who you had to become to survive. So, what can you do? You begin by meeting the part of you that was hurt, not with logic, but with presence. Sit with your emotions instead of escaping them. When anger rises, let it speak. When sadness comes, don't fix it, feel it. The body knows how to process pain, but only if you stop interrupting it with judgment. Healing means giving yourself what no one else could. It means saying to that younger version of you, "I see you, I believe you, and I'm here now." That simple inner dialogue, repeated with consistency, starts to rewire the deepest scripts in your nervous system. Use a journal to track your triggers. Write down what you feel, where you feel it in your body, and what memory it might be tied to. You'll start to see patterns, not just in what hurts, but in how you've protected yourself. These protections are not weaknesses. They were brilliant, necessary adaptations. But now, you have the chance to choose something new. Every time you pause, instead of reacting, every time you stay instead of running, every time you validate your own pain instead of waiting for someone else to do it, you are healing. And yes, it's hard, because healing often means grieving the life you didn't get to live, mourning the childhood you deserved but never had, letting go of the fantasy that someone will come and fix what was broken. No one's coming, but the one who can save you is already here. You, not the perfect you, not the healed you, the honest you, the one who's willing to stop pretending. Also, reconnect with your body. Trauma isn't just in your mind. It lives in your muscles, your breath, your nervous system. Start with small practices. Breathing slowly when you feel overwhelmed. Placing a hand on your heart when you feel afraid. Grounding your feet when you dissociate. These are not hacks. They are acts of remembering. Remembering that you are safe now and you don't have to live in survival anymore. And finally, forgive yourself. Not for what you did wrong, but for how long you didn't know better, for how many years you lived on autopilot, for how often you abandoned yourself just to be accepted. That forgiveness is the door. And on the other side of that door is not perfection, it's freedom. The freedom to live, love, rest, and choose, not from fear, but from truth. You don't need another book, another theory, or another excuse. What you need is a moment of raw honesty with yourself. Not tomorrow, now, because the truth is simple. If you were wounded in childhood, that pain didn't disappear. It adapted. It learned how to smile, how to function, how to look fine. But underneath, it still lives in how you speak to yourself, in what you allow from others, in how small you let yourself be. And if you're tired of that, you're ready. So how do you know if childhood trauma still runs your life? You don't need a diagnosis, you need clarity. Here are 3 of the most simple and powerful practices you can start today. No fluff, no hype, just truth. First, pause the moment you feel discomfort. Not when things are calm, but right when the trigger hits. Ask yourself, what age does this emotion feel like? You'll be surprised. Most of your intense adult reactions don't come from your adult self. They come from the 5-year-old or the 10-year-old who never got to speak. That question alone can open a door. When you recognize the child behind the reaction, compassion takes over, and compassion creates space for change. Second, track your inner critic for 1 full day. Not just the loud attacks, but the subtle, shaming thoughts. I shouldn't feel this. I'm too much. I'll mess this up. Write them down, then ask, whose voice is this? You'll often realize it's not yours. It's a parent, a teacher, a culture. And once you name it, you no longer have to obey it. You can interrupt it, challenge it, replace it. Third, try the mirror exercise. Stand in front of a mirror, look into your own eyes, and say out loud, I'm here. I see you. I will not abandon you again. At first, it may feel awkward. You might even cry. But something inside you will shift. Because the child in you has waited years to hear those words. And now, you're finally saying them. If you do these 3 things, even just once, you'll get answers. Not from someone else, from you. Because deep down, you already know what hurts. You already know what's missing. And you already know that your life can't move forward until your past is seen, heard, and held. And if any part of this resonated, subscribe to the channel. Let these words find others who are done pretending, done hiding, done surviving. Join the Telegram too. That's where we go even deeper together. And if you saw yourself in these moments, write in the comments, I no longer run from pain. Or say, my darkness is my strength. Or, I take off the masks. Or simply, I accept my shadow. Let's create a space where truth is not judged, but welcomed. Where pain isn't hidden. This is not the end, it's the beginning. And the path forward is yours to walk.